So we talked about all this excellent stuff that you're working on in your life.
Yeah.
All right. You're working with these kids, coaching. You work at this business consulting firm. You're starting a family. You just got engaged. You have this wedding on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What is the highest projection of Matt Rose going into the future? Like, who is this entity of Matt Rose that's higher than the person you are right now?
So I think it chops down to like constant progress, right? So it's boiled down to the point of when you're constantly chasing a better version of yourself, it's there's no end game, right? So, as I catapult from when we were in college, you think you're ready for the business world, and you get there and you realize it's not the same environment that you were used to. So, you go from a college athletic environment where you're super intense all the time. And then, whether you work in an office or you work doing labor, right? You can't be an intense guy all the time. You can't be all flexed out and staring people down for 9 hours in a day. It's just not possible. And you don't have that much adrenaline. And you don't have that much focus. Brain's not meant to do that. So, as you realize that there has to be an adjustment for that, you realize that there's more efficient ways to live that life. So, going from and transitioning from a college athlete to someone working in my realm right now, there's adjustments that need to be made. Furthermore, working into a family now, I'm engaged. You're in my wedding. Your brother's in my wedding. A bunch of our friends are in my wedding. My focus shift has gone from, okay, how am I going to be an elite consultant? I'm still focused on doing that. But now my biggest focus is, how am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to be the best version of myself for my wife? How am I going to be the best version of myself for my kids? Because when I was in college, my coaches would constantly kind of check us, where if we were bringing a bad attitude in from classes or whatever happened during the day, we bring it into the wrestling room. Like, yeah, keep that shit out the door. Because what are you going to do when you have a kid and you have a wife? You're going to have a bad day at work and bring that home and put it on your kids, ruin their day, ruin your wife's day, all because you're pissed off at your fucking manager. I'm sure as shit not going to be that guy. You can't be. That's not what any great man is going to do. A great man doesn't bring home their problems. Leave their problems at the door. It's like when you're a kid, and they tell you to leave your ego at the door when you walk into a wrestling room. I'm going to leave my problems at the door, and I'm coming in with a smile on my face, even if I'm faking it. Because I'm not going to ruin my child's day because I'm having one. So I think the highest version of myself is constantly keeping that humility and putting my ego to the side and realizing that other people around me matter more than myself, especially my family, especially my wife, especially my kids, especially my loved ones, right? The only reason why, I know you live this way too, the only reason why we want to achieve is to make the people around us proud and provide for them. So I think that's kind of encompasses where the highest level of myself will be, constantly trying to chase after a better version of myself, most likely will transition into everyone around me being able to have an environment that they're able to find the best version of themselves. I can't expect Victoria to be the best version of herself if I'm not giving her that. Right?
No, definitely. No, that makes a lot of sense. So projecting outward like that, how do you expect, or how are you planning on building into that progression of Matt Rose, this bad motherfucker in the future?
Mm-hmm.
All right, the family man, the elite coach, creating national champions, the top of the line business consultant, making $1 million deals,
Hopefully,
and problem solving like a maniac. All right, because when it comes down to it, we all pray for the rain.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but what comes with rain? The mud.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the mud is just that shitstorm of nonsense that slaps you in the face. It's the reality of the circumstance. All right, there's going to be great things that come your way, but there's also going to be loss.
Yeah.
There's going to be failure. There's going to be triumph, but there's also going to be tribulation. All right, there's going to have those setbacks at play. The one thing I absolutely love that we've talked about before prior was you have this concept of the 24-hour rule.
Mm-hmm.
You mind explaining that?
Yeah. So when I was in college, my coaches they said we have to live by this 24-hour rule. Like you have 24 hours to get out of your feelings. You have 24 hours to feel shitty, and once that 24-hour hits, you're over it. We're on to the next thing. We're moving on to bigger and better things. How are we going to progress forward? And that rule started as something that was just for a loss in wrestling or a bad practice in wrestling. And now it's something that I've implemented into real life situations. You know, I wish I had that principle ingrained in my mind when Bobby died, but obviously, listen, things happen in certain ways because it's supposed to. Um, but you know, when Tony died a couple of years later, my other brother Tony died. You know, not that I only took 24 hours to mourn him, but you know, I had to take a step back and realize that other people are mourning him too. My parents are hurt, family's hurt. If I'm sitting there and just grieving all the time and in this horrible state of mind, how am I helping my family? How am I helping my dad get through his day? How am I helping my mom get through her day? You know, so I did a much better job with that time around with not bringing my problems to everyone around me. Giving myself that, you know, it was a little bit longer than 24 hours in this circumstance, but, you know, trying to get over as fast as possible, realizing and owning the feelings that I have in that short period of time and trying to figure out how can I move forward, right? What am I doing to progress forward? How can I take positives from this so that I can instill them into the people around me, or at least attempt to? If I can make my mom or dad crack a smile after something horrible like that, that's what matters, right? The selflessness of that, you know. And then even moving forward to, you know, when me and Victoria get in a fight, am I gonna stay pissed off at my wife for a week because she called me an asshole because I probably was being one? No, I can't. And it's like that. You can't do that. I'm gonna get over it, get out of my feels, and tell my wife that I love her, because that's what you're supposed to do as a man who's a provider. You can't sit there and dwell and be selfish. That's a selfish state of mind for someone to be there and just think, my life sucks. This is horrible. I shouldn't be here. Why is life like this? All that stuff. That's selfish. You're thinking me, 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 me. When in those times, when everyone cares, everyone who's around you that cares about you, you should be focused on how can I make their situation better. And little steps like that help you get out of those valleys. So that 24-hour rule is really something that I tried to bring into all aspects of life. You know, and it's funny how something so simple that you use to get over a wrestling match just snowballed positively into something that I can use as a, you know, a methodology to get over other things in life and really serious things in life. You know, so it's, again, it goes back to some of the things we were talking about where, like, wrestling is a sport that teaches you these principles that are just, you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah. And you have this lovely life motto. You want to state it?
Yeah. So in college, I came up with this idea of this quote is a reaction to adversity defines man. You know, and it really, I think I kind of own that statement because I try to find and embrace, not, I don't try to find it, but I embrace my adversity. I embrace my struggle. And that's something that I really want to try to instill to my children. And what I try to explain to the kids that I coach, because, you know, in that melting zone of adversity where you're just down in the dumps, you know, something hits, you know, having a great day, getting a car wreck, you know, someone blows out your mirror or something, you just sit there and be pissed off about it all day? Or are you going to get to your destination and continue with your progress? You know, so overcoming adversity and overcoming struggle is a lot more achieving than sitting in it and festering and letting it consume you. When you get over to the other side and you realize all the, you know, you look back and you're thinking about all the obstacles and adversity you came over, it's uplifting. It builds your confidence, and it makes your coping mechanisms for the next time it comes around that much better. So reaction to adversity is something I try to live by, and I'm going to try to instill into all the younger people that I'm able to have my hands with.
Yeah. And you see with elite athletes across all spectrums, with UFC guys like Charles Oliveira and Alex Pereira, they were in the favelas of Brazil and had a very humble beginning, but were able to push past those boundaries and embrace that dark side of their upbringing, of their environment. That tribulation, whatever setback they had when they were in their youth, just their circumstance in general, and projected outward. All right. I think having a positive outlook is a great thing. And everyone, the common thread with psychology and all this crazy stuff nowadays and all these sciences is having a great outlook, having a super positive outlook, being happy. But a very valuable aspect of your identity is that dark side.
Realizing it.
Yeah, realizing it, owning it, embracing it, because that's internal to you.
It's defining.
Yes.
It's defining. Yeah. As much as your achievements can define you, your darkest demons define you, because when push comes to shove, that's what's going to come out.
It's your fuel.
Yeah.
All right. Like when shit hits the fan, or when it's time for you to show up, You're not just thinking about the happy-go-lucky moments. You're thinking about that the suffering you
Yep.
went through, all right, in the moment leading up to that.
Absolutely.
All right. Like prime example with the sport of wrestling. You go through suffering. It's self-inflicted suffering
Yeah.
every single day. All right. No one wants to do a 2.5 hour
In a sweaty,
freaking
hot
gruel-
wrestling
yeah,
room.
100-degree wrestling room, beating the shit out of each other with another 140 or 200-pound grown man just getting clubbed to hell.
Mhm.
No normal person wants to do that, but that's a sense of suffering,
Mhm.
and that's also passion.
It goes
because
back-
that's what you're willing to suffer.
Mike Tyson says it really well. He goes, "You learn to love the things that you hate doing," or something to the effect of that. You know, that's what wrestling teaches you. It teaches you to love something that you hate doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something special.
Yeah,
That's something that not many humans get to do. And you know, wrestling, especially at the collegiate level and past that, you know, it really teaches you to do that.
yeah. I used to say when I was competing, like, I'm grateful for the pain that I receive.
Uh-huh.
All right, because I could dish it 10 times more.
Yeah,
I need to feel something.
that's a gangster
all right?
statement.
I need to feel something in order to dish it.
Mhm.
All right, and that's suffering in the practice room. That's suffering from. I was usually the guy to club somebody 1st,
Mhm.
but that response, me eliciting a response through a club or a
Mhm.
post or something like that, and being able to feel their reaction,
Mhm.
that's what really pushed me forward. That was
Yeah.
that little oomph, that snap.
Yeah.
And that carries that's the fuel for a lot of people, which is beautiful. So now we have this highest projection. You have this highest projection, Matt Rose, and you're working on it tirelessly.
Mhm.
It's an every second ordeal.
Mhm.
Even in conversations like this, these are defining moments
Mhm.
for both of us to like elevate us to our higher purpose.
Absolutely.
When do you see yourself achieving this point? It's not a peak point for Matt Rose. All right.
Yeah.
It's an eternal point for Matt Rose, because how I view it is you have your identity, and your identity is constantly compounding day over day. And your character is the highest projection of self. It's the eternal being. It's you living through your spirit instead of your flesh. Right? In the Bible,
Mhm.
they talk about living through the spirit instead of the flesh. So it's you living through that spirit and you embodying that spirit, the highest projection of you. When do you see yourself fully integrating yourself
So-
into that highest form?
I think that's a difficult question to answer, just because it's not simple.
Oh, 100%. It's not.
The road of progress doesn't have an endpoint, right? And if someone says that there's an endpoint, it's BS. They're truly not trying to constantly elevate themselves. And I'm not saying that from like a pedestal or standing on a soapbox saying like I chase the best version of myself every single day. I'm better than you. No, it's true. If you're constantly trying to progress, there's always something you can progress at. So for me to say that I'll know that I made it when I hit this point, I could be a millionaire, but money doesn't make happiness. It can buy you nice things, but it can't make you happy. You know, I could be a great father, but not provide. So there's all these different aspects that there's always going to be something that I can be better at. So I think it's less of when and more of like a realization where things kind of just fall into place, where I'm 60 years old and I'm watching my sons or my daughter chasing greatness. I'm watching the little kids that I help build up right now at Apex chasing greatness, whether it's in wrestling or whatever other aspects in life. They're doing great things. That to me would be the point where I could sit back and be like, you know what? I really impacted people positively. That's something more meaningful to me than any trophy, any medal I could put on my dad's like metal wall. That means more. And I think that kind of goes to, you know, in the Bible, it's like what it kind of goes down to. So you're always trying to chase a better version of yourself for God, because that's what he wanted you to do.
Yeah. So Brian Bino, you know Brian Bino because Apex too. But me and Brian used to go on like power walks all the time in college. And he turned me on to this one author, Herman Hesse. There's this book by Herman Hesse. It's the first book I picked up from him, actually. It's called Damien. All right. And in the preface of the book, freaking awesome. It's like one of the most pack-a-punch lines ever. He talks about how a man is the journey of a man's life is never complete. A man is never complete at the end of his existence. All right. But his pursuit defines his whole. All right. We're all born through the same doorway. Our mama's hoo-ha. All right. Every single person, no matter who you are, you come through the same door. You come through the same way into this existence. All right. But your pursuit to that whole, that pursuit to completeness, you'll never be complete. It's a guaranteed. You're never going to do all the things you want to do. You're never going to be able to make all the decisions and spend all the time the way you want it. All right. But at the end, when you're on your deathbed, and we both laughed about this earlier, but although it's a controversial topic, that Andrew Tate story about his grandmother. All right. He talks about what happens with like modern day masculinity and femininity, but he talks about the value or the realization he had with his grandmother. All right. She dedicated her whole life to create life.
90 years old, filled a room full of people that she created.
And nurture family, nurture a community of people that supported and came from her. All right. And although the masculine and feminine purpose is a little bit different, our roles are here as kind of like as a provider. All right. And the biggest thing is
that's what we chose. That's what we chose to own.
Yeah. And that's what we choose to own. But we're also providing examples because of the character we're living through. Because the highest projection of Matt Rose, the highest projection of Sean O'Malley. All right. It may not be there. May not be the multi-billion badass motherfuckers, but we hold ourselves with a genuine character that's going to take over the world and change people's lives right now in the moment. And we're living through that conviction right now.
Yeah.
So segueing it over to the incompleteness of life. All right. What are you willing to give up? All right. This is a tough question, but because I was sitting down reflecting on this the other day, what are you willing to give up to make sure you achieve that highest form of Matt Rose?
So it's funny, yes, I would think about this a lot. I remember I had a conversation we used to do in college. We used to do Thank God It's Monday. We'd all meet at the wrestling room at 7 a.m. and our coach would give us a booklet where we'd have our goal books and we'd watch a TED Talk or something. And that came up, that question came up. It was like, what are you willing to give up for this? And for a whole year, I convinced myself, like, I'm willing to give my last breath for this. And not just saying that to say it, believing it to like, I will give my last breath to ensure that I did everything I did today. Everything I did in my hardest effort and in full purpose and potential for me to achieve my goals. And that's something that I went through. It carried with me past college, where now it's like, as soon as Victoria came into my life and I decided that she was the one for me, I was like, I'd give my last breath for that woman. I'd give my last breath for my future kids. They're not even here yet. We're not even a thought yet. I'd give my last breath for my loved ones, my family. So that's what it means to me. And it might be intense for a lot of people who are listening to this, but that's what it is. The selflessness is what it is. I'd give anything. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. To achieve what I want to achieve, that's what I'm willing to give.
And the highest currency on the face of the earth is purpose-driven action, right? Especially purpose-driven action with people, all right? A family, a community, your support system. That's the highest currency. One thing that has remained the same since the beginning of time is the shit that comes out of this mouth.
Yeah.
All right. Talk has always been cheap. The value of talk has never changed. It's always been cheaper than a fucking penny. But the actions associated with what comes out of here outweighs anything.
And you could see it where I'm not saying I'm the only person who's like that. There's plenty of people who live their life like that. But you could see it. I hope that people could see it through my actions where, when I'm coaching kids, they could see that I'd give anything to make sure that they're in the best situation. Yeah. Hope my Victoria knows that I would jump in front of a train. Right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Bruno Mars.
Oh yeah.
No, but like seriously, like I hope that people who know me and love me, they could see that that's how I live, and it's a truth. It's not just something that I say.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've said to many people.
No. Yeah, and you mean it when you say it.
Absolutely.
Like I said, words are cheap, and you can't really keep someone's word unless they're backing it up with an action of high value. So to wrap this thing up, you want to kind of uncover some bits of advice for this next generation of, hey, maybe your kids and maybe some of the guys you're working with, maybe just some of your boys or people who are watching, some advice that helps them define that winning category. All right. Like, what makes you a winner, and what's that advice that you would give to them to become a winner?
Definitely reaction to adversity defines men. Embracing adversity and struggle. And I think asking yourself tough questions that you don't want to answer to other people. That's a cold statement. You know, you could ask me a question on camera or off camera, and it's the things that you don't want to let yourself realize because you're afraid of it. Letting that out to not only yourself but other people, that's a tough thing to do. And when you realize that stuff, you're really able to progress. When you own your demons, the things you got to realize and you got to work through, you ask yourself those questions, it really allows for someone to progress. So I think, asking yourself those tough questions that you don't want to answer and embracing adversity.
Definitely. All right. So Apex Nation, Limestone
Apex
Nation.
family. Yeah. Before we end here, I want to shout out Del Barton High School's wrestling team. They won their state team title today. I had a couple opportunities to work with those boys. They're straight gentlemen, hard workers, eager to learn. So caps off to you. Well earned. Keep the success going through the postseason. I want to see some NHSCA champs and All-Americans at Fargo.
Definitely keep it rolling, studs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Appreciate you, Matty.
Love
You're
you,
the man.
buddy.
Love you, brother.